So you like wine. Yes, it's fun, it's exciting, of course intoxicating, but it can be confusing, complicated, especially when we talk about Italian wines. So what is on the store shelves, on the restaurant wine list? What are the Italian wines in America? Well, my name is Stephen, and I'll be your guide. I live and work in an Italian neighborhood in St. Louis called The Hill. We've been given unprecedented access to the wine room at Charlie Gito's on The Hill. Well, welcome to the wine room. Today we're going to be discussing the wines of Piemonte. Piemonte is a region in northwest Italy. It is home to the city of Torino. What is important about Italian wines here, especially Italian whites? There are three main Italian white grapes in Piemonte: Gave or Cortese, Arnese, and Moscato. So what about Gave? So Gave is the name of the grape, also the name of a place. So you may see wines listed as Gave. You may also see wines listed as Gave di Gave if it's produced around the town of Gave. You may also see wines labeled Cortese or Cortese di Gave. Arnese, typically found around the town of Roero. How does Arnese compare to Gave? Well, Gave has a higher acidity. It is medium plus in acid, and it is medium in alcohol. Arnese is more medium in acidity and more medium plus in alcohol, so they are structurally a little different. As far as the aromatics and the complexities, the fruit is somewhat similar. They both have citrus fruits, lemons, limes, as well as apple, particularly green apple. But fairly complex in their fruit profiles as well. Very earthy, as are all of these Italian wines, and typically no oak. For sweet wines, we have Moscato in one of two basic forms, either Moscato d'Asti or Asti Spumante, or just listed as Asti. Now, differences between the two. They are both sweet, of course, but Asti Spumante has wine under a pressure similar to that of Champagne. Now, it is not made in the Champagne method, in the traditional method, in the classic method, or method champenoise. It is done differently. Moscato d'Asti has wine under a pressure similar to that of what you see in soda water. So more like soda water bubbles. Oftentimes is poured into glasses that are just standard wine glasses. Moscato d'Asti is typically considered to be the finer of the two Moscatos. Now, one further note on Moscato d'Asti is that you will oftentimes see this listed as a dessert wine on Italian wine menus and wine lists. It's a bit lower in alcohol and lower in texture than what many dessert wines are. So if you're used to a more syrupy wine or more full-bodied dessert wine, you're going to find Moscato d'Asti to be a little bit light. However, it does match up very well with some fresh fruits. For the reds, Piemonte is world famous for its reds. There are three main red grapes. One is Dolcetto, the other is Barbera, and then some consider the greatest of all, Nebbiolo. Dolcetto, probably at its best coming from Ovada or Doliani, but Dolcetto has a medium plus acidity, medium plus tannins, and medium to medium plus alcohol. Red and dark fruits. It may or may not have a lot of oak, if any oak at all. In comparison to Barbera, they are structural inverses of each other. Barbera has a high acidity and medium minus to low tannins. Otherwise, red fruit driven with some dark fruits, probably has some oak. Most modern Barberas are oak aged, but not necessarily. Nebbiolo. Two famous forms, Barbaresco and Barolo. Nebbiolo as a grape. High in acid, high in alcohol, high in tannin, high in complexity, very full-bodied and very long finish. Structurally very powerful. Aromatically, high intensity on the nose. Fruits, predominantly red fruits, predominantly dried red fruits. A lot of non-fruit aromas as well. It can be herbaceous. It can have things like tar. It can have what people would describe as pizza toppings, sun-dried tomatoes, basil, oregano. It is extremely complex. Barbaresco, aged for 2 years, 4 years for a Reserva. Barolo is aged 3 years, 5 years for a Reserva. Comparisons between Barbaresco and Barolo. A general rule, if a producer makes a Barbaresco and a Barolo, the Barolo will be the fuller bodied of the two. However, it is difficult to say that that rule holds when we compare two different producers. Barbaresco is sourced from three main villages, Barbaresco itself, Neve, and Creiso. You will oftentimes see these villages mentioned, as well as some what we would call cru or single vineyard Barbarescos. Barolo, on the other hand, is sourced from 11 different villages. Now there are 5 main villages, and these are typically split up into east and west. So Barolos that are coming from either the village of Barolo or La Mora seem to be more aromatically interesting. They have, relatively speaking, more perfume, more aromatics, whereas the Barolos that are coming from towns like Serralunga d'Alba and Monforte d'Alba are more structurally interesting. They tend to be, relatively speaking, more about acid, more about tannin. Of course, both types of wines have a lot of both. They are both highly aromatic and they are both highly structured. So you will also see these villages mentioned on wine lists, on stores, and also their crus, their vineyards as well. What about other Nebbiolo? So Langhe. Langhe Nebbiolo is essentially the second Nebbiolo of Barbaresco and Barolo. It is the more approachable form of Nebbiolo found in that particular area. Other Nebbiolo, sourced from other places. For example, Gattinara. This is from a more northerly area in the region of Piemonte. You may also want to check out our video on Lombardia when we talk about Valtellina for other Nebbiolo as well. Now, other Nebbiolo does not necessarily fetch the prices that Barolo and Barbaresco do, so you can say that Gattinara is certainly in a best buy category. We must discuss something about Angelo Gaia. So he has a collection of single vineyards, which I'm sure you will find at some point in your journey through Piemontese reds. They tend to be on the more expensive side, and they also tend to be labeled as Langhe. Now, some of these wines were at one point a Barbaresco or a Barolo. It was his decision to change the place of origin to Langhe. Now, this particular one is the Dormaggi, which is Cabernet based, but he will have other Nebbiolos as well, things like Sori Tilden, Sori San Lorenzo, Sperse, etc., but considered to be one of the top producers in Italy as a whole. So we've moved to my kitchen, which has some better lighting, to see what some of these really distinctly colored Italian reds look like compared to some more familiar red wines. So from Piemonte, Nebbiolo, which is in this big glass, and this is Pinot Noir here in my left hand. Notice how the Pinot Noir and the Nebbiolo are of a similar level of concentration, but the Pinot Noir is more of a ruby, and it fades to a lighter ruby or salmon rim, whereas the Nebbiolo is more of a garnet, fading to a more intensely colored garnet rim. When we compare Nebbiolo to a Malbec, a very richly colored, very deep ruby, even all the way out to the rim, look how different that is with the Nebbiolo. Well, thank you once again.